Greetings, travelers. I'm your host, the C. that knows a lot, Dr. Waluigi. Throughout this journey, looking back on a lot of my favorite movie, TV series, and so on, I'm reminded of when I was a teenager discovering a lot of classic anime during my high school years. And although I watched many modern anime at this time, I still love checking out anime from the 90s due to designs and characters from my childhood like Sailor Moon and Cardcaptors. Speaking of the latter, that led me into checking out another one of the many classic stories from Clamp that sadly doesn't get enough attention as others that were created by the company. This one being an isekai story with three of the most adorable heroines this side of a sweet shop. This is my review of the 90s classic anime, Magic Knight Rayearth. The series is another that was created by Clamp that started out as a serial in a manga magazine called Nakayoshi, which was then picked up and published by Kodansha, who released up to 6 volumes from 1993 to 1996. The anime was released a year later on NNS stations in 1994 in Japan, and then was brought over to the West in 1999. The anime was licensed twice, the first time by our good friends at the Ocean Group, and then again by Media Blasters, where it was dubbed by Bang Zoom Entertainment. The anime has gone on to be one of the best magical girl series of the 90s, gaining the same notoriety as shows like Sailor Moon and Escaflowne. Though I personally feel like this series is more of a isekai mecha series mix instead of a magical girl series, as it was written closer to similar series as opposed to magical girl shows of the time. But that's not to say that the show is weak because of this premise. In fact, it's because of the show's premise that it stands out, and is one of the show's best qualities. The show follows the story of 3 girls from Tokyo of different backgrounds that are summoned to a place called Saphiro by the guardian of the land named Princess Emerald, voiced by Wendy Lee, to save her world and to defeat her once high priest named Zagato, voiced by Lex Lang. Can the 3 girls defeat Zagato and save Saphiro from crumbling, or will they fall to Zagato's power and never become the legendary Magic Knights? When it comes to the characters of this show, not only do we have a crap ton of heroic characters to look at, but also 2 seasons worth of villains. So I'm only going to be talking about our 3 main heroes in this section, and I will focus on the other characters and the roles they play when I discuss each season. First of all, I just want to take a moment and say that this girl is a precious cinnamon roll and must be protected at all costs. Of all 3 of the girls, my favorite is Hikaru Shido, voiced by Julie Madalena, as she was the one who gave the other girls the drive to carry on with their mission, and, while she was very childish, always went on with a positive and happy attitude. Which hurt when you saw her deal with the more negative and downer scenes that happened with her and the rest of the girls, especially when they discovered the only way to save Saphiro. But we'll get to that soon. The other 2 girls we follow, Umi Ryuzaki, voiced by Wendy Lee, is a girl from high society, and at first, she seems to only care about herself and wants to get back to Tokyo by any means necessary. However, once she gets to know Hikaru and the other member of the team, she starts to see that Saphiro needs her help and becomes more willing to save it along with the other 2. The final member of the trio is Fu Hooji, voiced by Bridget Hoffman, who is another girl that comes from a prestigious middle school, though more for it being known as a school for students that have high aptitudes. This is the character that I liked the least, as she felt very robotic, and at times I wasn't sure why the character was written to be like a giant book. But after she started interacting with the others, as well as getting her own love interest with a mercenary named Ferio, voiced by Terrence Stone, I started to see more of her character blossom. It was because of these girls that many of the other characters grew and changed over the course of the 2 seasons, and it's here where we finally get to discuss what made the show so great. The first season is one that many RPG fans will enjoy, as it is written with the same rules and flow as something out of a Square Enix game, which I find funny considering that the video game adaptation was done by Working Designs, who were the creators of many RPGs including the Lunar series. The season, as I stated in the plot, follows our main characters journeying through Saphiro to become Magic Knights. The first of their tasks is to find an item to have a blacksmith named Persea, voiced by Mary Devon, and bring it back to her to make the armor and weapons to find the rune gods and have them take on Zagato and his minions. Speaking of, Zagato has 5 minions that the girls face throughout the show. The first is a sorceress named Alcyone, voiced by Barbara Goodson, who was an apprentice to the most powerful sorcerer in Saphiro named Clef, voiced by Steve Stanley. But she betrayed him and Princess Emerald to serve as lackey to Zagato after she fell in love with him. In the first season, she was basically a love-stricken lackey that, while powerful, underestimated her enemies and always lost to the girls, leading to her to try and impress Zagato but failed each time. She wasn't a bad character, but she wasn't anything special either, though she did get quite an upgrade in Season 2. The second of Zagato's minions was a young monster tamer named Ascot, voiced by Mona Marshall, who was a young child that's being rejected by Sephiro's society because his magic and friends weren't welcomed wherever he went, until Zagato gave him a place to belong in his court. However, when he fights against the girls, he becomes more and more cruel to them as they keep killing his friends. I think out of all of the villains, Ascot was the one who had the most growth, as he started out as this misunderstood kid who acted out against those who hurt him and his friends. But eventually, after his fight with Umi, he starts to question if he's doing the right thing by fighting on Zagato's side, which leads to him hiding out with the third member of the group. The third member of Zagato's troupe is an illusionist named Caldina, who basically joins Zagato for money. However, much like Ascot and a few of the other characters, she would join our heroes after she was beaten a few times and would become a full-time hero in the second season. The fourth henchman is Lafarga, the captain of the Royal Guard, who was put under a spell by Zagato but was released after he grabs Hikaru's sword, burning him, which releases him from Zagato's spell. He's another okay character that wasn't really interesting even in the second season, though he might have been interesting in the manga. The last minion is Innova, a wolf-like creature that Zagato turned human in order to serve him. He's the only character that was made for the show and doesn't appear in the manga. Personally, while I liked the fight between him and the girls, there wasn't much about him that stood out, other than he was a loyal servant to Zagato after he saved Innova's life. Aside from the decent characters, the one thing about this season I liked the most was the final twist, which is a pretty big one, so spoilers from here on out for the rest of the season. After Hikaru, Umi, and Fu defeat Zagato, it's revealed to them by Clef that in order to save Sephiroth from its destruction, they have to kill Princess Emerald, as she and Zagato fell in love, and that as the pillar, she must only care for the planet and its people. But since she fell in love with Zagato, her thoughts have only been about him, and thus Zagato kidnapped Princess Emerald in order to keep her all to himself, even if that meant destroying the world. It's honestly one of the few times in an anime where, because of love, a world was being destroyed and that the heroes were summoned to save it, but at a terrible price. Which is one of this season's saving graces, as while I love the characters and the fight scenes, I'm not a huge fan of how by the numbers the anime is. Which, don't get me wrong, the anime is still one of my all-time favorites, but I will say that Season 2 is a lot more interesting compared to the generic structure of Season 1. This season really picks up with how high the stakes were raised. We begin with our heroes returning to our world after defeating Princess Emerald, but they are depressed from having to kill her even though they see her and Zagato reunited in what I assume is heaven, before they are sent back to our world. So after a few days in our world, they all decide to head back to Sephiroth, where they encounter all of their friends at Princess Emerald's old castle, including two new faces, Lantis, the younger brother of Zagato, and what the girls believe is Presea, though in reality it's her twin sister Sierra. No, not you! They explain to the girls that because of Princess Emerald's death, the planet of Sephiroth has started to crumble on its own, and that they need a new pillar to restore it. However, Sephiroth is in even more danger with it being invaded by three of its neighboring countries, who all want to control Sephiroth for different reasons, as well as Hikaru having dreams about something evil lurking in the center of Sephiroth. While I wouldn't say that this season is the darkest thing I've seen from a magical girl anime, it is an improvement compared to the generic and formulaic premise of the first season. I also like that several of the villains in this season are also relatable and do have some good reasons for wanting to become the new pillar of Sephiroth, such as wanting to increase their land, using Sephiroth's magic for healing purposes, or just wanting to be the pillar because you want to be loved by all. Hey, I didn't say all of these were good reasons. But none of these wishes compare to the main villain of this season, the evil queen of the dark dimension, Debonair, who uses her influence to cause the people of Sephiroth to wish for the world to end, and even creates an evil version of Hikaru named Nova. These characters are what makes the second season, as well as the more impressive fight scenes, better than the first season, as well as the stronger writing with how well these characters evolved, even adding some great moments of the girls finding their true loves, though I will admit the manga series did these better. Normally I'd add which episodes are the best and worst from this series, but honestly, this show doesn't have an episode that I absolutely love or hate. Everything from the characters to the animation and writing were all handled pretty well considering how short the manga was, only coming in at 6 issues, meaning that there were only 3 issues between each of the seasons that were adapted. And even though there were a few minor changes made, the anime does stay close to the original source that fans of both versions can enjoy it. Overall, I give Magic Knight Rayearth a 10 out of 10. If you're looking for a show similar to that of Sailor Moon, but are more interested in a fantasy-like setting, this is a show that is definitely for you. Thanks for watching, I'm Dr. Waluigi, and remember, don't judge a book by its cover, cause you'll never know what's inside. Good night, everyone.
Every now and then there appears a sign